I don't have to listen anymore. I'm successful. So they tell me. We're going to run a few videos up on the screen as I'm talking. I'm not really going to talk about the videos, just, you watch them or something like that. If you see something interesting, you can ask me. This is, what we're doing is this some of the stuff that we've developed over the years. We've been in business for 21 years, started in 1996. Like we said in the introduction, there's 100 people now. What the object of this is to give some inspiration to, I think everybody here is in the entrepreneur, thinking about starting something, maybe started something. If I can, after when it's all over, if you have some particular questions, some information I can give you, a little bit of help to get through some of the roadblocks and the hurdles you're going to have to get through to actually get a successful business up and running, you're more than welcome to ask. The object of, what I want to talk about is what's the object of starting a business? Okay, of your own business. There's all sorts of reasons that you might take a look at it. My history was I needed a job, couldn't find myself a job, so we started a company so we could find ourselves a job. That tends to be pretty popular, I believe, for startup companies. The other ones are entrepreneurs. You have a good idea, you think you want to take a run with it, you maybe have something to offer the world. Hopefully I can give some insights into maybe dodging a few bullets. There's a very fond term that I have. It's called learning money. Learning money is the money you wish you hadn't wasted. If you just would have known something, that little piece of information, somebody would have given you a little hint, ask a question. The important part about it is ask questions. This doesn't exist when I was starting my company 21 years ago. But you can come here, you can ask questions. NORCAT, there's people here. They know a lot of companies in town. People maybe do some mentorship. You can go maybe sit down, have lunch, ask some questions. Ask questions, okay? There's some really... eventually, this is a video that's actually playing on Barrett Gold's corporate website now. And if you notice, the truck came up, there was nobody in it. So this truck, we drive this up from underground. They do teleoperation, and then it goes into automation mode and just drives out. So this is a little company. 100 people is it's kind of a small company, But that's a little company out of Sudbury. And we were told by a lot of people that this is the first time this has ever been done in the world. This was done in May. Okay? So that's the kind of technology and the innovation that's coming out of this little city that we live in here, that we call home. These sort of things. So there was, pretty sharp. We're under gag order and live by these. Read your contracts. Are you going to sign contracts with somebody? Read your contracts. Okay? You can burn some really bad bridges or end up in court if you don't read your contracts, so you get involved. This particular one was, we weren't allowed to say anything about this project until they release it. And even when they released it on their website, we still didn't say anything until we contacted their advertising group. People look after their image, okay, their PR department, and ask permission. Can we say something about this now? And what we got back was a thank you from top honchos at Barrett Gold saying, we appreciate the vendor asking for permission before they just claim they're doing stuff on our properties. Okay? But be very careful when you're going to sign contracts. Make sure you understand your contracts. Very, very important thing to remember. This fine print could be in there. You could do a lot of work and not get anything out of it. So make sure you understand your contracts. And sign some contracts. That's pretty important. Handshakes are really good. A handshake is about as good as a piece of toilet paper when it comes right down to it. Okay? You need contracts. Contracts keep people honest who want to be honest. But what it does, it lays out some groundwork that you've read it and they've read it, and what's on paper agrees with what you both think that you're signing into. And that's as simple as if you're going to sell somebody something. Okay? For instance, you're not very good artistically and you want to get yourself a logo made. If you hire the wrong person to make your logo, you can find out in the future that you can't use the logo you paid to design because it's art. And the person who creates it can turn around and hold it ransom and say, you need to pay me money now to use this logo that I created for you. Okay, so these are just some pictures running of some of the facility we have built now after the 21 years have gone by. This is where we're kind of sitting. Those who don't know where we are, we're out in Dowling. You can kind of see it when you drive by on the highway. It's kind of a nice big building that's sitting there. We employ 100 people there, so it's, we're probably arguably the largest employer in Dowling anyway, and hopefully we make the community look a little nicer. I know the grocery store loves us across the street because 100 people go over and buy lunch every day, so I'm pretty sure we're bringing some cash into the community with that. One thing I want to talk about is it's a very important concept, and this goes back to why you get in business. You got to put something in your mind. You don't go into business because you love what you do. Okay? You're lucky if you love what you do. What you need to do is you got to get down and you have to understand that you're going into business to make money. You want to eat. And as nice as people are, you got to pay rent on your building and you got to pay rent at home, and nobody's going to, well, I guess you could get some food around at the at the help centers around town, if you got really hungry, but you got to buy food and you got to drive a car and eventually, you want to borrow some money from a bank. You need to make money. Okay? So give that a lot of thought before you open your business up. Okay? How are you going to make money? How are you going to turn what you're doing into a paycheck? Okay? You really need to think about that. Okay? A lot of people just get into something because they love doing it, but there's a lot of starving artists out there, so you can love to do it, but you need to make some money doing it. Give that some thought. Okay? At that point, you got things you need to deal with. When you make money, your very best friend in the world is called a CRA. Who knows what a CRA is? Canada Revenue Agency. Okay? They love us. They need us to work. They want us to go out and make money so we can pay taxes. Okay? Once you make money, you need to pay taxes. You will pay taxes. And you better love paying taxes. Because if you're not paying taxes, you're not making money. Okay? If you make money and somebody tells you you don't need to pay taxes, they're lying to you. It's called profit. If you make profit, you will pay taxes, and you need to pay taxes. Okay? The trick is you need to know how much tax you need to pay. So you need to get yourself an accountant. And that's not a bookkeeper. Okay? Trust me on this one. This is not a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper is not an accountant. A bookkeeper doesn't understand taxes for the most part. So you need to get an accountant to tell you how to do things properly. If you have a really good idea and you really believe, and you've got maybe an investor behind you, maybe your family really believes that you're going to make it big, you need to structure your company properly day one. There's certain things you can't go back and change after once you structure it. For instance, nobody really tells you this stuff because statistically we're not supposed to survive, right? See, statistically, what is it? Less than 10%, maybe 5% survive the first 3 years. That's why 3 years is a magic number. You better be able to fund yourself for 3 years. You will have a very hard time getting a bank to do anything for you until you have 3 years in business. Or you better hope that your family will sign away their houses and stuff and back you as a co-signer. Okay? Because the 3 years is a magic number. Once you get over that, you have 3 years of books to show that you know how to make money. That's where that number comes from. So when you walk in the bank with the best idea that it was ever there, and the bank manager asks you where your house is and how much is paid off, just understanding where they're coming from, the bank is a business. And they have shareholders and owners that demand returns on their investment. So they're not in the business of giving freebies away to entrepreneurs and startup companies. They want to make sure that you know how to pay your bills. Okay? So this is a very important concept. So you need to get your accountant lined up, and your accountant, interestingly enough, I'll ask a question. If you're starting your company, who should you talk to before you register? You're going to start a brand new company, you're going to register a company, you're going to start a corporation. Who would be the person that you would talk to make decisions about that? Legally. Would it be a lawyer, an accountant, your banker? Give me a roll of hands. Would you talk to your accountant? Not talk to, I mean, who would give you the most advice? Would it be your accountant or a lawyer? Who thinks it would be a lawyer that would give you the most advice? Okay, go again with accountant. Okay, your family? Perfect, nobody. It's your accountant, to be quite honest. Your accountant tells the lawyer how to set your company up. And the reason is when you make money, they know how to get it out of your company with paying the proper amount of taxes. Okay? Now, just you didn't hear me saying without paying taxes. You will pay taxes. Okay? You just need to pay the proper amount of taxes. So it's very, very important to understand that. There's a magic number. If you don't do that, if you try something or you already have a business registered, pay very close attention to the point when if you're not incorporated, if you're just doing it as a, what's the one below? Yeah, proprietorship. If you're doing that, okay, the day you go to incorporate, do not do that by yourself. If you're making that decision, get a hold of the accountant and make sure you do it properly. Because if you don't do it right, you think in the future, it's okay, because if I really, my dad financed me or my brother financed me, and I can give him some shares after. You cannot give shares away. When there's a value there, it needs to be valued and it needs to be transacted properly, because our favorite government people like to come in, they want their taxes. And that's why you can't give anything away. Okay? So that's why if you don't do it properly, you can get really messed. Magic numbers and that, and you don't kind of see this, You get rolling. First year, you sell $100,000 worth of stuff. Yeah, a little bit of taxes. Maybe $16,000 taxes on your small business, what you leave in the business. You get $200,000, you pay about 16%, give or take, of taxes on that. You get the $500,000 of profit, you pay 16%. You think, boy, that's great. I just can't wait. I've already got my business going. I can't wait till I have $500,000 of profit. Okay, $500,000 of profit is not cash. Okay? It can easily be made up of your accounts receivable and inventory. Zero cash. So here you are now, you have $500,000 of profit, and you owe the government 16% of that in taxes. Banks do not lend money to pay taxes. They don't like that one at all. Okay? So you need to have, and that's liquid cash. You go late on that payment, there's penalties and interest. 10% penalty usually right off the bat. Okay? The one thing you pay is you pay anything you owe the government first. 10% penalties are typical right off the bat. Doesn't matter if that's, employee tax you pay or whatever it is, you got to pay that. Okay? Because the penalties are nasty. See, penalties and interest right away. Not very forgiving neither. Even if it's a mistake or it's not even your fault, they don't care. Okay? You hear me talk a lot about, eventually what it is, it's not making money. It's how to hold on to some of that money. Okay? Because this is an inspirational talk. Okay? The inspiration is eventually, you want to pull $500,000 out of your company and go buy yourself a camp somewhere. I mean, that's what you want to do, right? It's your money. Well, that's kind of not your money. It's the company's money. So there's ways to get it out properly and there's ways you can't get it out. You need to just make sure you do that in the right way. Otherwise, you can start giving away a lot of money in taxes. Half, easily half. Okay? Did you guys study at all succession planning? Yeah, succession planning is the one reason you need to talk to that with your accountant if you're going to get rolling. Okay? Give some thought to that before it gets too late. And that's why I'm saying at $500,000 of profit in a company, it's not a lot of money. But boy, if you don't know what you're doing with that, that's $500,000 of profit that you need to deal with at some point. You want to get it out of your company. You want to do something with it. Maybe you want to take it out of company A and invest it in company B. You got to pay taxes to get it out of the first company. Okay? I remember quite a few years ago, it was the first time we cracked $1 million of profit. Okay? Profit is, I spent this much and I made this much. I had $1.1 million of extra money. Okay? Not a penny of cash. Our receivables went up by $400,000. Our inventory was up $400,000. Our payables were $100,000 lower. There was not a penny of cash. Okay? Now there's a magic thing that nobody tells you about. The small business tax rate is 16%. Once you go, it's over about $600,000, the rest of the money jumps to 33% tax. Okay? So instead of owing, what you think is 16, you're now owing a lot more than that, but you have no cash. So that's where this stuff can really, really get interesting in a hurry. But, myself and a lot of other companies, a lot of successful companies in town, you get over that hurdle, you kind of make it, and you get on to the next step, and away you go, right? Then eventually you get to a place where you can kind of handle that yourself, you hope so. There's a phrase, it says that you've never fixed anything unless you've broken something. So that's where the learning money comes from. Just try and minimize that. Ask questions, just don't give your money away for no reason. There's lots of people willing to take your money, that's for sure, in any way of business. I'm talking to the other things to do. The cash is king. Okay? It's major. We live in a society now where we're taught from, I'm going to go off nasty here, but the school system teaches our kids that they no longer can compete. Let's not start a social thing here. Get your first job. You don't get promoted because you're the worst person there. You get promoted because you're the best, typically, right? Life is a competition at the end of the day. When I walk in and I bid a job, I don't get the job because they like me for my face, okay? I get the job because I'm competing with other companies and I won. But people are leaving high schools and colleges without ever having to win something, You're going to go into business, you're not going into business to lose. Otherwise, don't bother doing it. Okay, you're going into business to win. And you're winning, everything. You got to win at picking the right employees when you hire employees. You got to, pick the right accounting firm. Pick the right bank for your partner. You got to pick all of this stuff. You need to do it to win, not just to do it, right? In business, there's no brownie points for coming in second best. They just call it the unemployment line at the end. So yeah, you got to play the game to win. Okay. When you start trading new ground, you do things that you don't understand. Get advice. Okay. There's things that you think make common sense. They don't make common sense, and you really need to understand them. Okay. The rewards are great. You can really, really, get ahead. You saw the pictures of the warehouse. Okay? You got to learn what inventory is. Inventory is an asset, and it's taxable the year you buy that inventory. So year to year, as your inventory increases, that's where you got to pay tax on that money. If your inventory goes from $500,000 to $1 million, you owe Revenue Canada tax on that $500,000 bucks. Okay, so that's why you can really go through the cash really hard. I had a meeting today, actually, with BDC. So BDC, Business Development Corporation, EDC is the Export Development Corporation, sister groups. For entrepreneurs and startup companies, there's lots of money out there. Go get it. Okay? Because it's there to start businesses. To get something going. They're the only ones who are going to give you money in the first place. Like I said, unless your parents or unless you got a friend that's got deep pockets or good credit that they can go and co-sign your loan for you, nobody's going to lend you money. When you do your cost analysis, the way we deal with it, whenever we cost something out, we double it. We figure out everything that we can figure out, and then we double that number. And then usually we come in pretty close on that budget. Because you just think about all the stuff that you forgot about when you go to do it. So if you need $20,000 to do something, you're going with $20,000, you're going to run short. Okay? Now if you do that and you stretch yourself thin and then you go to the bank, they won't lend you money. You never go looking for money when you need it. You go looking for money when you don't need it. You get it prepared ahead of time. If you've got $20,000 of cash sitting there, you're going to start your business, go to the bank and get a loan. Keep your cash on hand so you have something to work with. Okay? At least have the credit line set up if it does, because it doesn't cost you anything to set the credit line up. But at least have the credit sitting there. When you spend your $20,000 and then go to the bank and ask for money, they're not going to give you anything. At that point, they say, well, where's your money? Well, I have it all invested in my company. Yeah, but where's your money? Right? Because they want collateral. They want security for their, no, it's not their money, it's their shareholders' money. Right? So, if you go into export, you got to be very careful of the countries that you deal with. You need to understand the laws and the cultures in those countries you go into. It was mentioned earlier. I just ran through quickly. We started here in Sudbury. That's where our company started. Our year end is July 31st, because that's our taxation year end. So we have our numbers from last year now. Less than 4% of our business was here in Sudbury. Okay? The countries we deal with: United States, Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua, Peru, Bolivia, Colombia, Argentina, Brazil. Then we jump Ireland, Africa. We're in quite a few different countries in Africa. Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Australia. It's all over the world, and it's all different cultures. Okay? And you need to understand that, because what's acceptable here in our culture is maybe not acceptable business-wise in somebody else's culture. So you need to study that. Okay? Handshakes, like I said, don't mean anything, and they sure don't mean anything when you go across the ponds. Okay? You got to remember something. If you sign a contract, legally you can't sign a contract in most countries unless you have a work visa. Okay? You don't just go in on a visitor's visa and sign a contract. That contract's actually not binding. Okay? So you need to actually get a business visa to sign a contract if you're somewhere else. They can send you a PO, which is fine. Okay? But if you try to sue them, you will be doing it in the other country. Okay? If you're in Canada, watch your contract. If you've got a big contract in Quebec, for instance, make sure your contract states that that the law used is in Ontario. The interpretation is in English. Okay? Very important things to understand when you get into contracts, I'm giving you stuff to kind of think about. So what you do is, before you go and grab your pen and go, this is the greatest thing that ever happened, go talk to a lawyer. Maybe somebody, a friend or a friend of a friend who, can maybe give you some hints about what to look for in these contracts. Watch for penalties. If you get a nice contract with a big company, a lot of times there's penalties in those contracts. If you say you're going to deliver by, the 1st of December and you miss that date, the penalties can be horrific. Okay? Enough where all profit is gone out of the job. Okay? If you go in certain countries like the United States, so here if you pretty much if you do anything, if you do any service, provide a service, or you build a product, you need to have liability insurance. Typically, if you're going to work, this is Sudbury, it's a mining community, so if you're going to work at one of the mines, they will require, usually it's close to about $7 million, I think, for the two big players in town, of liability insurance. 5, and there's another rider on it. It's around $7 million of liability insurance that you require to do work. Okay? And that is based on a percentage of your sales, is the way they do that insurance. If you do work in the United States, okay, that insurance will cost you 6% more. 6% of your revenue more in the United States than it will in Canada. You got to make sure you build that into your cost. Okay? The reason for it is the States is like a sue everybody kind of place, right? They just lawsuits and really, really crazy judgments sometimes that are given out. So you got to be careful, because your insurance company comes, the next year they come back and say, well, what was your sales last year? Well, I got this huge contract, $2 million in the United States. And they ship you a bill for $80,000 of insurance. Okay? That's the sort of things that can happen. And it's only stuff that ends up in the States, if you ever get involved in that. Also keep this in mind. Do you guys know what EDC does? EDC guarantees receivables. So if you're going international, you're going outside the country, the EDC will guarantee to set your receivable. They charge you. Depends on the strength of your company and stuff, but they charge you a percentage of the sale value, but they guarantee that if you don't get your money, that they'll come good for the money, a percentage of it, okay? But it's better than getting your butt handed to you on a plate, because you gotta, you get something out of it anyway, at least maybe get your material costs back and your labor costs back. But with the EDC, the biggest payouts that they do is to the United States. The most defaults that we get to Canadian companies are from the States. That's something when I found that out, and it's way, way higher than other jurisdictions. Okay? It's because the States, you start a business, boom, they're bankrupt. You're out of luck. You don't get your money. It's gone. At that point. So, stuff to kind of keep in mind. Maybe at this point here, I yapped about this enough. Is there anybody who wants to ask some questions or some specific questions?
Have you found shipping to some of these countries?
Sorry, what's that?
Have you found shipping to many of these countries a great challenge?
So the answer is you need to understand what you're doing, but it's not that difficult. There's a lot of, depending on what you're shipping, if it's a big package or something, or if it's a piece of machinery, there's freight forwarders. So there's lots of good ones. You get a freight forwarder, they charge you the money, they look after the importation paperwork and everything else. They figure that out for you. And you pay a fee. Okay? So I mentioned that now if you have a small thing you want to ship, okay, you can send that, UPS or DHL, they'll ship it for you. It can be very expensive. You get a little package, if you try to get a package, this big down to Chile in as fast as you can, which is usually 3-4 days, you can be in the order of $800, $900 bucks. It can be worth a lot more than the piece you're trying to fix or repair, So, but there's a lot of stuff that you can learn also by doing it. So if you get involved in that, don't just, blindly take it on faith that the first person you talk to is going to give you the right price. Shop it around a bit and just get some comparison quotes and stuff, They can be dramatically different, like really, really different in prices. If you're involved, so I mentioned I don't think I mentioned that. So we have offices actually here in Sudbury is our head office. We own a property in Salt Lake City to deal with the U.S. market. I don't own it, but I have an office in Lima, Peru, and we own an office in Santiago, Chile. So I fly to Santiago all the time. I fly to Lima all the time. When you fly enough, you get Air Canada gives you a little card that says you're super elite, and it just lets you go in the lounge. You go in the first class line all the time. It's got some perks. Got some good perks actually. But you also spend about $20,000 a year with them in order to get those perks. For instance, in Chile, if we need something really fast, okay, I can carry, because of the super elite status, or a first class ticket will also get you this, I can carry 210 pounds of goods with me. So I can pack up 3 boxes at 70 pounds each, normal's 50, and then they charge you over, but I can take 70 pounds. I can take that in and I can fly it with me on a domestic flight. Can't go through the United States. Okay? The second you land in the United States, that is now considered commercial goods, and that's limited to about $3,000 to $4,000 US that you can actually take to the States. But if you fly over the States, which Air Canada does, Copa Airlines out of Panama does, a bunch of them do, you can carry that with you. In Chile, if we really need it, I can send the paperwork to Chile. They can pre-clear that in customs, and the customs broker will be sitting in the airport waiting for me to come out of the airport, and we will walk out of the airport with systems. And I've done that in the tune of $100,000, $150,000 of stuff. All the import taxes are paid and everything else, and you walk right through. You got to understand that stuff. We're all familiar with HST, 13%. No matter what we buy here, we pay 13%. As a business, I pay the 13%. When I charge the customers, I charge them the 13%. I keep the part I paid. I send the government the difference. In Chile, it's 19%. Okay? So when you import something, there's a 19% tax. That's their goods and services tax that you have to pay to import it. So if you're dealing with somebody you sell them $100,000 worth of stuff. They need 19 grand to get this out of customs. Okay? So, this one, the first time I actually got that one kind of slapped upside the head with it was, the reason I have my office in Peru is because my dealer actually took off on us. So I had a bad dealer, clipped us for about $250,000 in gear and stuff like that. And I got really ticked off, and I started a company in Peru so I could go head to head with them. That's why I have an office in Peru. And what we did in order to support the customers, we packed up $250,000 worth of stuff and we sent it to Peru. I needed $50,000 cash in Peru to get it out of customs. So then I had to send another $50,000 cash to Peru so I could get our stuff out of customs so I could support the clients. You know, so sometimes when you go to do stuff shipping, you got to watch the other side. You can really kill the guy or the person you're dealing with. Like, dealers are really bad; they never have money. You know, so you ship some stuff down, all of a sudden it's stuck in customs. Okay, be careful. What they'll do, what the dealer will tell you about that, is they will tell you that, oh, I got to pay the 19%. So they don't tell you that they're going to get it back when they sell it. So they tell you it's 19%. They get you to drop your prices down, or if you're selling to an end customer, they can put the 19% in their pocket plus their commission or whatever they're making on that. Okay? And they try to do that all the time. They fail to tell you that they're going to get those taxes back. They will also try to roll their personal taxes in. So in Brazil is really bad for that because the taxes are high. Brazil has a policy that if they make it in Brazil and you try to import it, the tariffs are unbelievable on it. You know, the order of double, triple the price. Okay, so if you get a car that's made in Brazil, the car is pretty cheap. But you try to buy one that's imported, they're incredibly expensive because they want you to buy stuff made in Brazil because it creates, wealth inside the country. So, but no, shipping is you just have to learn how to do it. So, but you target one. What you have to make sure you do is you have to fill out your NAFTA paperwork if it's in that group. But that's only in North America. If you go in other jurisdictions, you have to fill it out. But there are international codes and stuff for shipping stuff that you have to know. You got to understand what you can ship and what you can't ship. Okay? We had a competitor that had, everybody hears lithium batteries. Well, they lit on fire on airplanes and stuff. So they just said, you can't ship a lithium battery on an airplane. They went and used lithium batteries in all their gear. They couldn't ship a battery anywhere to their customers. Okay? Caused them an incredible amount of problems. Because to get it on a boat, you could be talking 2-3 months to move something by boat to get it there. You couldn't fly it. So the only way you could get one of those batteries to a customer is you had to put it in your laptop case, in your carry-on, and carry it, because you can take a lithium battery on an airplane if it's on you. Okay, that's a heck of a way to support a customer. Liquids, gels, you got to be careful. There's stuff you can't ship. Lead acid battery, you can't just pack up a lead acid battery and put it on an airplane. You got to do. There's all sorts of paperwork, dangerous goods. It depends what country it's going into. If it's bigger items, shipping, you just don't grab a wooden pallet. You're broke, you're cheap, you got a wooden pallet, somebody ships you some stuff, you grab that, you pack it all up, you ship it to Chile, they'll turn the whole thing back to you if it doesn't have the proper stamps on it. Okay? It has to be processed wood. Has to be used because you can't ship unstamped wood into those countries. Most countries have that now. Okay? So there's plastic pallets you can buy that are fairly cheap that'll deal with that stuff. If you're not sure about it, but it's got to have that stamp on it. Oils, if it's contaminated, you got to be careful. And a lot of that stuff is new. Inside the last 20 years, a lot of stuff is getting a lot tighter. So hope that helps something. So, but yeah, you got to do some research into it, but it's not hard. Costly sometimes. Yeah. Anybody else got another one?
What was the biggest thing you broke that you had to fix?
Partners. Okay. No, joking aside, yeah, partners are great. Okay? Because, you start a business, you got a partner, you're aligned, everything looks good, and you run out of money. One partner has a little bit of extra cash, the other guy, you don't have so much cash. If things go lopsided, there's a saying says a business relationship only works if both sides benefit equally. The second that relationship starts getting lopsided, the partnership starts to get very strained. Okay? So if you do the historical on it, partnerships tend to get strained. Okay? Statistically, they might not do so good. Okay? Shareholders, we were incorporated the day we started. We got incorporated. We didn't do it right. That's why I tell you that one there. I paid. It'll cost me forever now because it wasn't done right. Because now the problem is I can't move the money. Where the money is, it's there. That's where it's stuck. I can't deal with it now. Okay? But yeah, partners was a big one. I bought out 6 partners actually started this company, and I bought out 2 didn't last 6 months in. We ran out of money. Went 8 months without a paycheck. They were gone. 4 years later, we bought our property, or 3.5 years later, we bought our property. 2 more didn't want no commitment on like that depth of commitment, so they left. The bank, our business plan was simple. 3 years, get your books. We were going to sit down, the 6 of us would sit down and say, okay, are you in or are you out? Okay? Are you happy with where the business is or are you not happy? If you're not happy and the company has a little extra money, we'll buy you out. But the deal right in our shareholders agreement, there was no profit. That first commitment was you get what is book value and that's it. If the company's in the red, you can buy your way out. Okay? That was our deal. I never had anybody buy their way out. Okay? First 2 left didn't cost anything. Next 2 left cost me $15,000 a piece. My 5th one left cost me $1.6 million. Okay? Because it's after-tax dollars. See, nobody explains that to you. Okay? $1 million deal is $1 million is what he's getting, but I got to make it in after-tax dollars. Okay? So I had to make $1.6 million in order to get the $1 million to pay it out. So I got to make 1.6, give $600,000 to the government, and give another $1 million to him. Okay? It worked out okay. I'm okay with it. So what I did, that's a good question. So when I bought them out, I brought 4 partners in. What did I break? I brought 4 partners in. I had 4 guys in the company. I really believed that they were very important. One was my son who'd been with me since he was 14 years old. So he was mid to late 20s, mid 20s at that time. And then I had 3 other guys that one guy I've known now for 25 years. He's still with us. And 2 other guys. One was my controller. I thought that would be very important. And another guy was one of my main managers. So I'm going to say I financed them. I kind of didn't finance them. I just kind of gave the pieces to them. The company paid them a bonus, which was then used to buy out the shares. This was this $1.6 million buyout. So I maintained 50% ownership. My son took 25% plus a quarter of the other 25%. So he ended up with around 32% or something like that. He ended up with. And the other guys around 7% each that they had in shares. 3 years later, I bought out the first one of them. Okay? Now this is how fast. So this is inspirational, and this might sound like negative, but it's really not. The shares were bought at $133,000. That was the share of the $1 million. $133,000. No, there was something else mixed in there, but it came to $133,000, I think it was. I bought them out 3 years later, $360,000. So those shares almost tripled in 3 years. That's the value. At the end of the day, the value of your company is your retained earnings. Okay, so that was the value 3 years later. The next guy bought out a year after that. His was almost $500,000. So this was the growth that we were in. Okay, good growth. Okay? So right now there's only 3 partners: myself, my son, and one other guy. Now the other guy, these are things that when I talk about taxes, there's all sorts of magic rules, incredible amount of magic rules where all of a sudden if you get to a place, oh, you don't get that tax break now because you did this wrong. Okay? One is, if you own less than 10% of the shares of the company, there's tax things that you don't get. If you own more than 10%, 10 or more, you get these tax things you can do. which may change if our illustrious government goes through with what they're talking about doing now. Okay, but there's things you can do if you own more than 10%. So I sold him 10%, and or not 10%. I sold him 1 point some percent to get him over to 10%. And I own, I think, 54% or something like that now. At the end of the day, so was it good? My son was too young. At the time we started the company, when I bought out my ex-partner, well, my son was old enough, so he was able to get into the company, you know. So he's in good shape. I'll put it that way. You know, the company's in good shape. I mean, so everything you see, you guys were watching the pictures, cash is king. We own everything. Okay? It's all paid for. Okay? We bought a property in Salt Lake City, paid $750,000 Canadian for it. And that, I took a loan out. So I went to our bank here, took a loan out with them. See, your bank's your partner. You got to let them make some money. So I took a loan out, let them make some interest on it. But there was more reasons. We're actually in a very high growth rate again. And this way here, it's about the cheapest money you can borrow is for bricks and mortar. That's about the best money you're ever going to get, you know. So, and the bank will not finance. So it's a Canadian bank. I'm not going to say which bank it is. We have an extremely good relationship with them. They're the major business bank in town. So if you do any research, they'll do small business. But when you get into the bigger stuff, there's only one bank really that does that kind of work. But they won't take collateral on a property in the United States. They want those bricks and mortar to be here in Canada because they want to reach out and touch it. You know, if you default, they want to be able to grab it and they want to get Canadian law to go take it away from you. But, so what they did is I borrowed the money to buy that building, but the collateral is this building. Okay, because you have that asset, they'll actually lend you the money that way. Did I turn that off? So, that's where, you know, at the end of the day, cash is king. You know, now the other thing that nobody explains to you, if you're deep in debt, you know, credit's not good, maybe you default on a payment, don't do that. Because your borrowing cost goes up. If you're solid, you've got good collateral behind you, you know, a building, a property, you've got some good stuff behind you, your borrowing rate goes down, and it goes down considerably. Because you're not high risk. Right? And when you go to a bank, just know that. Because they'll give you a better rate on the money. And shop it around. Don't just take the word at the first bank, you know, because you dealt with them for years and years, that they'll look after you. You know, when I started this company, I needed some money. My father worked for Inco, okay, had dealt with one of the banks here in town his whole life, owned his house, had everything. He went to them, they wouldn't lend him squat. Okay? Told my dad, I said, Dad, what are you doing? Why don't you drop them guys and move banks? You know, I've been there forever. That's going to be a hassle. No. You got to work with people who want to deal with you. If they don't want to deal with you, dump them. Go to work with somebody who wants to deal with you, you know? So, and sometimes it changes. I'm on my third bank. First bank, very close friends with my my third ex-partner. Okay? So we lost the accounting firm, the bank, the insurance company was all personal friends. So I had to get all new stuff. Okay? That was the first one. The second bank, very good bank to deal with, but they don't have, so we started in 96. I don't know if some of you must remember the .com era. You know, you just put .com behind something and all of a sudden somebody gave you all kinds of money for it. It was ridiculous, you know. We started the company in the .com era and the bank tagged us as a .com. Although we're not. We're more of a technology, you know, a hardware company. We got tagged as a .com. All their business decisions come out of Ottawa. That's where their head office is. And because we got tagged as a .com, they wouldn't do anything for us. Our building was paid for, everything was there, wouldn't increase our line of credit. This was the year I was sitting at $1.1 million in profit with no money. They my line of credit was small, was completely skewed from what it would take to run a business like that. So we end up changing banks the third time. Okay? The bank we're with now is really good. And they will be really good until I default on a payment. You know, that's what it comes down to. They're your partner. You know, people sit and they get mad, you know, you're trying to start something up, you're trying to do something and the bank won't do anything for you. But they're your partner. You know, so the way I look at it always, the analogy I use for that is, you know what, go to your folks, your family, your friends, your very close friends, and borrow money from them. They're not going to give you money to throw away. So why would the bank give you money to throw away? You know, you got to think about them. They're running a business too, right? So you got to think about that, you know. So, anybody else got one? Hopefully it was informative. Okay.
So you've grown from 6 to 100 employees now. How has your corporate culture changed? And have you put in policies or different? Have you tried to shape it in a certain way, or is it kind of grown organically?
Yeah, you either change or die. Okay. Everybody listen to the radio today? Sears, 65-year-old company, didn't change. They watched the online shopping come along, and they said, "Oh, that's fine. People are going to walk back into a store." No, they're not. Okay, no, they're not. They're going to buy online. Okay, free shipping. Okay, we have here in town direct hits, Toys R Us, bankruptcy protection. Sears was in bankruptcy. Now they're closed. They've announced, and they're closing everything. Okay, 12,000 employees. Change or die. So the change to the culture, when we started out, yeah, you can't pay so much money. So sometimes you're hiring people that are not qualified for the job you're hiring them for. Eventually you got to grow up and say, hey, I need to hire some people who are qualified. So for instance, one of those people was our controller now is a CPA. Okay, she's an accountant. So I get on my desk every Monday morning, I get a financial statement that was better than I used to get as a year-end statement. I know where we are. I know, because I have bank accounts in Chile, Peru, U.S. accounts. I got accounts in the States on the other company. All that stuff is reconciled. I think we're running right now, she just told me, I think it's close to 40 credit cards. Reconciled, every single credit card reconciled down to the penny every month. You get your credit card statement, okay, personal credit card statement, you have 30 days to dispute it. After that, can't dispute it. Okay, I believe it's 30 days. You don't have it forever. 6 months later, you check and go, holy crap, I got ripped off for $1,000 here. Well, it sucks to be you. So getting professional people in your organization, there's a time when you have to do that. Okay, doing the books on the kitchen table at night, that only goes for so long. Little mistakes you make, there's things you can and cannot do. Like buying food. I'm going out for business lunch in town. Well, you better document that. That's a no-no with CRA. You need to prove that lunch was to make business. You need to keep tabs of the people you went there with. Otherwise, they let you go for 10 or 15 years, and you're up there making good money, and they audit you. Personal use of company assets. Because the corporation, you got to understand, in a corporation, that corporation is a separate entity. Okay? It's like using your neighbor's car when he doesn't say you can use it. You just don't do that. But the company is the same thing. And the reason is very simple. It's because you paid less taxes. You only paid 16% tax on that money in a small business, right? So if you have a company vehicle and you drive it home at night, you had better make sure that you're doing what's called a taxable benefit. And it's a formula that you have to use. You have to use the portion you drive it against the portion that's used for company purposes. You get a percentage of that. You don't just say, oh, look, the company got me a car. One thing that happens too is how do you get equipment and gear? A lot of people, lease it. It's a tax write-off. No, there's a cost to doing that, right? So eventually, if you have cash, well, why would you pay interest on money when you have money in the bank? You get lucky to get 0.5% interest on that money. Okay, so why would you be paying 2 or 3% interest? Credit cards, pay the flipping credit cards off all the time. Whatever it takes to get the credit cards paid down. A lot of people start a company up, they try to run it on a credit card. Holy smokes, that's the stupidest thing you can possibly do. Even low credit cards, you're into at least 15% probably interest. And don't use the bad ones when you're up into the 25 and 28%. Costs you a fortune. You're just working for somebody else at that point. Get them paid off. We're borrowing money from somebody, but get those things paid off. Okay, and like I said, do not screw around with the government. You owe payroll deductions, you owe taxes at the end of the year, you have to pay that. Because the way they deal with it, they give you a 10% penalty on whatever you owe right there. 10% penalty instantly, and then interest on top of that. Okay? You got to pay that stuff off. You know, culture in the company is people. That's a big one. You know, eventually you start hiring people who are professionals. You know, we have our HR guy now at 100 people. We hired an HR guy. About how long has Brian been with us? 3 years now, eh? 3 years ago, right? 3 years ago. This in October, November. I brought my people in my office and I said, you know, what's stopping us from growing? Okay? We had just stagnated. And we got talking, you know, I said, well, we need, you know, we don't have anybody to work on this, and kind of came around and said, well, we need to hire people. One of my guys said, well, you know, the guy who was doing the HR stuff wasn't an HR guy. He's just doing it because, you know, one day they said, well, we need somebody to interview this person, you know. Actually, I said, I need somebody to fire this person. He volunteered. That's what happened. But anyway, they said, well, get him to, you know, hire some people. We said, well, he doesn't know how to hire. So maybe we need to hire somebody who knows how to hire people. So what we did is we hired a HR guy. I forget the designation for it, but he did schooling. He studied to be an HR guy. Okay? So we started bringing resumes in. He knows where to look for people. Okay? So that's one of the professionals. We have a younger lady working with us now. She's a supply chain management. She came back. We're very successful at bringing people back to Sudbury. Okay? So she's a young lady. She went to Toronto. Had to. You know, most young people have got to leave this place to get their first jobs. And she had a job with Canadian Tire in supply chain management. You know, she wanted to come back home. So that's what she's doing for us now. She's a certified professional. Okay? My marketing guy, he's a pro. That's what he did for his whole life. You know, there's some magic numbers too. I think this year our approved budget for magazine advertising is $280,000. That's in magazine buy. Okay, that equates though to about close over 400,000, because you negotiate when they send you look at advertising, they send you the sheet that shows you the cost of it. That's for a single ad. You negotiate for the year, and all magazines run from January through to December. So when you negotiate for the whole year, you'll get 30-40% off the cost, because you commit that you're going to buy, you know, every month for 12 months. Okay, so and that's only I think 4 magazines we advertise in. That's the price. These ads are $7,000-8,000 an ad to put them in. You know, pays off. Okay, you know how he convinced me of that? I had a meeting with this guy. He came into my office for a meeting, and we spent 3 hours together. And I asked him. I said, after all this is done, I hire you to do marketing. I hire you to do this. I said, why would I pay so much money for an ad? Why would you pay that kind of money for an ad? Because he told me, you'll never do a quarter-page ad. It's a full-page ad. Go home and test that one yourself. Go through a magazine and see how long you spend on each page. If there's 4 ads, you will spend exactly the same amount of time on that page as you do with the full page. You may actually spend more time on the one with the full-page ad. Okay? So there's a lot of stuff about that. But you're looking $7,000-8,000 a shot per magazine to do this. His answer to me was this simple. There was no height and, you know, there's this and there's all these statistics. He said, that's what the big boys do. That was his answer. That's what the big boys do. Why do you think Coca-Cola and Pepsi advertise? If they didn't advertise, we'd be drinking RC Cola. Okay? They advertise, and they advertise, and they advertise. You know, they advertise selling us bottled water. We pay more for a bottle of water than we do for gasoline, and all we do is gripe about the price of gasoline. Does that one make any sense? You know, we pay for water, but then we buy it from them. It makes no sense, right? But advertising actually does that. Okay, in companies like you know, the automotive sector, no matter how bad it is, they advertise. Okay, full page ad in like the Toronto Star. Expensive, 15, 20,000 bucks a week they'll spend on those ads. Okay, and they do it faithfully every week, down, turn up, doesn't make any difference. Because if they don't, you will just stop buying Fords. Because they're not going to be there. You're going to, you're driving down the street. Oh, that was a nice ad. I'll stop in here at this guy and I'll check their cars out. Right? It happens. We're kind of creatures of being led to stuff, right? And that's what advertising does. But there's magic numbers. A percentage of your sales typically goes back to advertising. And that number I gave you, it doesn't meet those scales at all. It's like really, really low. Okay? But you also, that doesn't count other things we do. Trade shows, depending on the type of business you're getting into, trade shows can work. Mining sector, I don't know if some people might know about it, but every 4 years is a huge mining show in Las Vegas. Okay? That was last September. The booth space, concrete, right there, 20 by 40 feet. Like this little area right here, 32,000 US for concrete. Okay, very expensive, and that show we spent over 100,000, about 120,000 Canadian at that show that we spent to do that show. So yeah, the advertising portion of it. Now on top of all that, I've got a very senior guy in my marketing is my marketing manager, VP of marketing and sales. Then I have a young lady who's a university grad. She's my manager of marketing and sales. So, oh yeah, it's you put that all together, you spend lots of money on it. But how are people going to know about us, right? And that's probably the reason that I did 4% of my business in Sudbury last year. How's somebody in Vancouver going to hear about you if you're not in a magazine? They don't get on the internet and go, I wonder what's interesting in Sudbury this year. Web presence is a huge one. Okay, our web presence is something that we're working on. It's not strong enough. When I go to look for something to buy, I do it on the web. I just jump on the web. I do my research. Jump on Reddit. What's this doing? Check it out. Get on Google. Do some searches. Compare this versus this. Check it out. People are they'll talk about stuff, but you just got to be able to read through the BS and the real stuff is what you need to do. So, but yeah, the cultural changes are dramatic after a while, and probably the biggest one is you get going and then you get tired, so you get complacent. You've been just giving it so hard for 2 years, and finally you get a nice contract and you think, oh, everything's good, right? And when you have employees, and employees get complacent. They come to work in the morning, they do the same piece of paper, they move it. If they had 10 pieces of paper, they'd move 10 pieces of paper. If they had 100, they would move 100. I call that complacency. Okay? And you have to stop that, because it can creep in very slowly, and it'll stop you. It'll stop you in your tracks. Probably the biggest, maybe one of the biggest things that just stops you from growing and everything else is you just get happy, right? You get make some money, you buy yourself a camp. You want to spend time at your camp. I don't have a camp. I don't have a camp. I got too much stuff I want to do yet. Okay, some of the stuff in these pictures that come up, we have here in Sudbury. We have a pick and place line for doing assembling electronic boards. That was an $800,000 investment to put that in. But it's future proofing. I can go head to head with stuff that comes out of China now. Okay? Without that, I can't do it. So, and for those who don't know, our government is trying to figure out how to tax robots now. Not kidding. Okay? Because robots are replacing people, they think, well, if we tax the robots. But see, you have to put robots in order to compete. So, it's getting interesting times. So, that's the pick and place line right there. Fully automated. That's where your cell phone comes off of. All electronic stuff come off of equipment like that. That machine will put 16,000 little parts per hour down. Okay? 16,000 parts an hour. If we run that machine, there's a job we do regularly. We run that machine for about 4 hours. It's equivalent to what the girl who runs it used to take her over 2 months to do that work. It does that in 4 hours. Okay? That's what you have to look for. You know, that's a cultural change, is when people come to work, you know, they're doing a job. But are they doing the maximum job? Give them the tools. Okay? Now, I don't know, is anybody in the group more of a technology type of, looking at a technology startup? Like programming or something? Software development. Okay? The one video, did the one video play, the one from zips through, the drifts zipping through? Yeah, just do me a favor and throw that one back up again. So this, you know, yeah, that one actually, I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to go somewhere with this. Okay? No, the other one, sorry. It is that one there, sorry. Yeah, it is that one. Yeah. This is a point cloud. Okay? This is shot with a scanning laser. This is the actual underground mine of Cortez Hill. This is where that machine's driving itself up. Okay? So this is the live video off the machine, but we have a full point cloud of this whole thing. It's a full 3D laser scan of this mine. Okay? And that's what we map off of. Okay? So one of my programmers that we have, I don't know how many, 14 or 15 programmers out of the 100 people now. And when he came to work for us, he came from a startup in North Bay that didn't make it, and he was working for another company, kind of hated that job, and then found out what we were doing, is what he went, because he's actually he's a master of mathematics and then computer science after that. Okay? So he's working on this computer, and I overhear him talking that it took, I forget how long, to process this block of data. And I said to him, well, what can help you do that faster? He says, well, we can, you know, nice video card and this. I said, well, how much are you talking? He says, well, you could probably, you know, $700-800. I'm thinking he's telling me $7,000 or $8,000. Okay? So I said, was that the best one you can buy? Well, there's this other one. It's like, but it's $1,200. Okay? You've got to buy the tools and the gear for the people to do the job they're going to do. Okay? Because the one thing you can't replace is hours. Good people, okay, they only have a certain amount of hours in the day to work for you. And if you give them crappy gear and the guy sits at his computer or gets and wanders around because he's waiting for this data to process, okay, you're paying him to do that. Do a fast analysis. Okay? You know, it's buy a brand new computer, buy the right gear for him. Okay? Almost every computer in my office is running 2 monitors on them. Okay? Because it just makes things so much nicer. Programmers, these guys are running 4 monitors on them because they got all this crap going on, you know? So, but yeah, it's the deal is that it's those times when you get to a certain point, and then you have to start thinking about, okay, where can I speed things up? Because you only can work so many hours a day, even if you're a nutball workaholic, okay? You're kind of limited to about 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, you can start putting 80 hours a week in. But that's only 80 hours. If 40 hours of that is wasted, you know, then it's a waste of time. You know, you want to maximize the use of your people. Okay? So that's a big cultural one, is to start looking at things. You begin to look at things differently. You know, most people will do a repetitive job and will never ever do it differently. Something as simple as doing the dishes after you eat. You know, they clean the table off, they'll set the stuff here, walk back around. It's like, holy smokes, like, you know, I tell people this when I say I'm the laziest person you've ever met. Because I will find the shortest way to get a job done. Okay? Because that's money. The faster I can do something, the more money I can make. You know, in a service type business, okay, if it's a restaurant or a garage or something like that, where it's service oriented business, you know, people will only pay you for what you can do. So if you make more money, you need to work more hours. When you have a product and you're developing, if you have a piece of software you developed and it's now saleable as a repeat product and you don't have to dick with it, you know, it's a repeat product, well, the more you sell, the more money you're going to make, right? So if you need to make a tweak on it, and it takes you a month to do a tweak on the software, when you could do it in a week, well, you've just lost customers. You know, the potential of somebody else coming in and beating you to the punch, right? So those sort of things you start thinking about more as time progresses. I swore it was funny, years ago, I do a lot of flying. Super elite, you're 100,000 miles a year, and there's lots of people in Sudbury that are super elite. The guys that work in the mines and stuff all over the world, lots of people. And I used to think all the time when I was flying, I said, I'll never pay for a first-class ticket. I just won't do it. I refuse to do it. Oh yeah, I do it now. Get on a plane and fly to Australia, 34 hours. Okay, land about 6 o'clock at night, and I had to be at the airport at 4:30 in the morning to get on the next flight to fly up to the mine. Yeah, $13,000 for a plane ticket. Yeah, but when you get there, I would never have been able to work. I slept on the plane. I got my, and no matter what you're in, you don't sleep that nice. But it is great. Anybody who's walked by the pods on Air Canada flight, they're great. Yeah, there's no denying those things when you're on whatever those flights are, hours and hours. You got to talk way too much. If everybody found it interesting, that's great. Hopefully it maybe helps out with some stuff, and thank you for your time. So. Think about it. So, when we started the company, we started designing a radio system. So we designed our own electronics. Okay. So what we did is we're not a service business. We're actually a product business. We build product. Okay. And once we got that built, okay, we needed to be able to manufacture it. And then you need to warehouse, you need to buy your parts and stuff like that. We started with 6 people. We hired 2 people, went to 8. And 6 months later, we were flat broke, and we ended up down at 4. But only 3 of us actually worked in the company at that time. Okay, and then as you start bringing people on, by 2008, 2009, if everybody remembers, the economy collapsed. Okay, October, First Nickel sent everybody home. December, FNX sent everybody home. February of 2009, Xstrata sent everybody home. Okay. June, Valley went on strike. That didn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay. In 2008, we were up to 52 employees. And we had a lot of people walking around not producing. And when everybody was laying off, everything slowed down. We dropped from 52 to 26 people. Okay? And doubled my profit that year. Okay? That's the stuff I'm talking about, the cultural stuff you need to look at. What are people doing? I walk in my shop, a big shop you see in the pictures, people sitting there drinking coffee, shooting the breeze. Well, that's okay to have meetings, but you have to produce something, So what we did is we dropped to 26, and then we brought people back. Actually, 4 people I brought back almost immediately. About 2 months later, we brought 4 back. That was it out of all the layoffs. We never brought anybody else back. Okay? And then we got to a point where there was a decision to be made right now. We're in a phase where we're into heavy development. So we brought a lot of people on in development. We can afford it right now. We have the money. We have the work to do it. So we're dumping the money as fast as we can back into developing. It would be very similar. I don't know if anybody would. It's very similar to growing. There's a couple ways to grow, right? You either grow. There's only 2 ways to grow a business. You grow your product. Okay, the product offering, or you grow the clients you sell to. That's the only 2 ways you're really going to grow a business. You need more clients or you need more product. Okay, so right now we're in we have a lot of good clients. We have very interested, very state-of-the-art technology we have, kind of sitting on a high bubble right now, but you got to run hard. You can't just sit back and say, ride this one out for 2 or 3 years. 2 or 3 years from now, it won't be 100 people. It'll be way less than that. But yeah, that's what kind of happened. It got to a point, where we need to manufacture. But see, things change, right? See, the pick and place line, for instance, we got to a point where I had 3 women working building boards for us. There's only 1 now. She runs that machine. But I have more people in my production room than I did at that time. The people move. See, jobs move around, right? So if I just sat back and said, well, I'll just keep hiring people to build these boards, I'd be friggin' broke. You can't do that. You need to move people to where they're more beneficial, you know. But right now we have in R&D, we have about a quarter of our staff is R&D, straight R&D. Okay, lots of weird tax rules based around that. SR&ED credit, I'm sure anybody here who's doing any sort of technology stuff does their SR&ED credit, scientific research and experimental development tax credits. Okay? Those you need to do. It's a tax credit. Okay? Once you start making money, they're not so valuable anymore. They kind of kill you after a while. They just figure if you're making money, you don't need to hire people. I don't know. We're just dumping the money back into the R&D right now as fast as we can. So the problem, there's a lot of discussions up here. I'm going on about stuff, but there's a lot of discussions up here when you're in the business end about the complaint that we have trouble hiring people. You know, because there's skilled labor is a big question. You know, there's no skilled labor to hire and all this sort of stuff. I disagree with that to a large extent. Okay. One of the big problems is you're not going to get a top-notch programmer for less than that programmer's worth just because you're in Sudbury, because they will leave and go somewhere else. So you need to pay people for their skill set. Okay, so that's one of the issues. You need to be able to pay people, and that's why we've been successful bringing people back from Southern Ontario and stuff. Okay, because we actually pay enough money that it's worthwhile for them to come back north and come home with their families and stuff, right? You know, you're not saying, wow, you're in Sudbury, a programmer in Sudbury doesn't make that much money. I don't care where you live, you know. But we do have a finite amount of programmers here. Okay? So what you have to do sometimes is you got to look and say, well, how are you going to deal with that? One reason for my office in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City, they're calling it, they're called Silicon Slopes. Okay? It's the new Silicon Valley in the States. They're very, it's starting to become a very high-tech center. So a lot of university grads and stuff like that. So, you know, we have a finite amount of people here in Northern Ontario. We just need to go somewhere else where there's more people. Okay? But, no, in growing it was one of those deals where we brought all these people on, too many, not the right people. We were able to cut back and then bring more of the right people on. You know? But we have trouble. So, you know, almost everybody knows where our office is out in Dowling. Anybody goes up 144, we're right there. Okay? Here in Sudbury, that's considered a long drive to get to work. You know, in Toronto, I'd be like, holy crap, I'm around the corner from work. You know? So I just lost one of my people. She lives in Lively. She took a job. You know, she's a fully qualified, certified person. She took a job in Lively because she's that much closer to work. You know? And the job it's not high tech. It's one of the support jobs. So although she's certified and everything, I can see her point. You know, you're going to lose people. You know, at first you take it personal. You know, somebody leaves your company, it's like, well, what'd I do? You know, well, they check you off, you left. Oh no, people move for reasons. They move because they're family, they move because their kids go to school. There's all sorts of reasons, right? So, you know, different way too. Okay, I'm yipping and yapping here.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being so gracious with your time, Walter. Thank you for bringing. And thank you all for sticking around and taking part in our one. I'll be around for a little while longer if you have any questions about the program or kind of what's coming up. And yeah, otherwise, have a good night, stay home safe, and we'll see you, I guess, next Wednesday. If you take advantage of the Regional Business Center Bridges Better Business coupon, I will see you there. Otherwise, I will see you 2 Wednesdays from now. All right? Is that only the lunch event? It's only the lunch event, yes. Single tickets. I'll put it up.
Oops.